So today is my term 3 morning basket reflections. So I'm going to be talking about what we did in our morning basket this term and how we liked it, what we finished off, what we're going to continue in the next year, most likely, and just give you some overall thoughts on what we used in our morning basket. So I like to do these, and I usually do these last because I feel like the morning basket is something that is a little more flexible. It's not something that I specifically plan for the next year until I have all my cores figured out generally. I will be creating a video talking about my process on how to choose what to put in my morning basket the next year based on what I have or resources that I might want to get. So that video will come out later this summer. But for now, let's go through what I had here and let me just give you an overview of how I felt it went. So I have a few things here on the side because they don't really fit in my morning basket at this point. Some things are a little bigger than others, and as I was finishing up my morning basket, I was just kind of putting it to the side. So I just kind of went and found those for you to show you. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this, Who is God? Okay, so next I have this here, American Tales by Mary Osborne. She does the Magic Treehouse series. I talked about this last one, so I'm not gonna go too far into it, but basically American Tall Tales. It went really well with our American history this year, so that was very interesting. My kids did enjoy this. I think maybe around 10 tales, so I probably added it second term and we finished it before the end of this term, probably a few weeks ago. Something that I just completed today, it took us all year and I did have to switch up our rotation to make sure I finished it this year, but we were reading A Drop of Water by Walter Wick. I really love this book. I feel like I would definitely go and buy others by him. He just has, it's basically some concept like water, and he just talks about the scientific aspects of them and has beautiful photography to kind of illustrate the point. So I really do recommend Walter Wick's Book of Science and Wonders. There's a few of those. I will link in the description box below links to anything that I show here. So in case you want to take a look further, or if you're interested in purchasing one, just check out the links below. And along with that, we read Pagoo. We just finished this today. It was just the life cycle of a hermit crab and just kind of all that he goes through and all the stages that he goes through. So it's very interesting. My kids really loved it when it was the day that we read Pagoo. So I do recommend that, by Clancy Halling. We did a whole bunch of feelings and emotion books this year. So the one that we were doing for most of this term was this one, Usborne's All About Worries and Fears. This is definitely for younger kids. My kids are 10 to 14 right now. I would say it's probably more appropriate for the 8, 10, 11-year-old range, but it was good. Talked about what do you do if you're worried about things, and talking about sharing your emotions and what you can do with some of these feelings that you have. How can you help yourself feel better? So that was a good book. We enjoyed it. So this Usborne, All About Worries and Fears. So I talked about this next one in my May update. We have really been enjoying Freedom Train. It is the story of Harriet Tubman. I just have 2 more chapters to read tomorrow, so we'll be finishing this up. It gives a really good, thorough understanding of sort of her life at a very easy level for reading. I would say a 4th or 5th grade level for reading. So you could hand this to your child if they were at that reading level, but we have enjoyed reading this together, and I'm definitely learning a lot of things I didn't know about those times and the Civil War and even her involvement in the Civil War. So that's been very interesting read for us. So that's been our read aloud for the last bit of this term. Next I have Among the Farmyard People by Claire D. Pearson. We just finished this up, I think yesterday was Sunday. So finished this up last week. So we continue to enjoy these series. I am at the point where I'm not sure if I'm going to continue these in our morning basket. I have probably 2 more that I have, but my kids do enjoy reading like the Christian Liberty readers, those nature readers or readers about animals and stuff. So they are at the point where they could probably read these on their own and understand it. So it might become part of their assigned reading next year, or I might choose another one to do over next year as well. We will see how my morning basket looks and how much I think I can put in my morning basket next year when I do that, putting together my morning basket video. So I'm not sure on that. We're continuing to do these. I did ask my kids if they wanted to continue with these next year. These are the Good and the Beautiful vintage images. They said that they do want to continue. So I just bring it out probably every 2 weeks or so. We have right now, we're working on level 2 and level 3. So my more advanced drawers can do this, and my drawers who need a little more help are working on level 2. And we can usually do one of those while I'm reading something like the Farmyard people or Pagoo or things like that. So they usually get started with drawing this while I'm reading something to them. So it just gives their hands something to do during our morning time once in a while. We have been continuing with a child's introduction to poetry. We like it. I like the CD that it reads the poems for my kids so they can just have someone else reading to them. We are about maybe halfway through this, so we will definitely be continuing this in the upcoming school year. So I do recommend, if you want to learn about a whole bunch of different kinds of poetry and just get some examples of different types of poetry, I do recommend this book. My placeholder for Word Up. We are continuing to enjoy Word Up. I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through the 2nd level. So we still have level 3 and a little bit of level 2 left. So that should serve us all of next year as well. So that will be in our rotation. So check out Compass Classroom's Word Up if you want a fun, interactive, not interactive, but more of it's like a TV show talking about vocabulary. And the guy, Dwayne, I don't know his last name, he teaches visual Latin, which is a very popular Latin program for people who do study Latin. We are not going to be studying Latin, but if my kids chose to study Latin, I would definitely be choosing visual Latin based on all the good things I've heard about it. But he does this vocabulary show. It is meant for middle school students, but definitely we only watch basically we just watch the show. We don't do any of the activities. There are activities to go along, and I think quizzes as well. I feel like I could add that as part of a high school credit for vocabulary in the future. Even though we've gone through it once, maybe in a few years, I could add it again. And I would use it for part of a high school English credit. So it's very good for middle school. And I would say don't shy away from it for high school. Like even my child with good vocabulary, she can learn a lot from this. So yeah, it's been a fun kind of addition to our morning basket rotation, something a little different that we can do every so often. Each show is about, I would say, between 12 to maybe 18 minutes long, if you're just wondering on the length. And it's just fun to learn some new words based on Latin and Greek roots. I will have a link to Compass Classroom below. I think you can sign up for some trial periods as well, or you can check out the first few videos of those levels. I'm pretty sure you can see a few of the videos to see if it's something that would work for you. So check that out if you find that interesting. So next I have my Chinese pile here. These are all the resources that I use very quickly. I know not all of you are interested in Chinese, but we are using Chinese Made Easy. We have a textbook and a workbook that I photocopy for my kids. We have these Tuttle flashcards. They have also Korean, I believe. Yuri from the Chan 7, she uses the Korean version of these a lot. We've been using this for 3 years, so I do recommend that if you're looking for language flashcards. I'm not sure what other languages they use. I have these Chinese readers that I've been reading to my daughter since she was really tiny, but now we're using it in our Chinese lessons. And we have Sing to Learn Chinese here. That's just some Chinese songs. I am going to be able to do the same rotations that I planned out this year. Next year, we got, let's see, here was my planning sheet. We got, as you can see, almost halfway through what I had planned. So we have quite a bit left. Using these here, we'll just continue to work on some basic Mandarin. I just started adding this towards the end of like the last week or two. This is the kids' book of Canadian history. I am Canadian, my kids are not Canadian, but I wanted to introduce Canadian history as my kids were learning about US history and world history. This was the best resource I've been able to find so far. So really, I'm just going to be reading a few lessons here. We will not get to where we are in US history, but maybe I'll start again with this in the new school year and catch up to where we are in US history before we continue with our US history and then our world history and all that. So I would say this is not exactly morning basket. It is in our morning basket area, and I'm doing it more as a subject, but I thought I would mention that resource in case you're Canadian or you're interested in adding some Canadian history. Sometimes it's hard to find good resources. I won't say it's a living book. It is a little harder than some of the living books that we're doing, but it is more of that encyclopedia style, and we have been able to read it and understand most of it. So I do recommend that as a resource for Canadians who might be watching this. So finally, my third term, I decided last year that on the third term, I was going to add in Shakespeare. So last year we did A Midsummer Night's Dream. This year we did Twelfth Night. And the reason why I picked this Shakespeare play was not too exciting. I have this, the Usborne Complete Shakespeare. It's stories from all the plays. I find it hard to believe that all the plays are in here, but maybe they are. And they basically have a whole bunch of stories here. We did A Midsummer Night's Dream last year, and that is the first one. The second one is Twelfth Night. And honestly, I have never read Twelfth Night or heard of it or know the storyline, so it was interesting to me. So I decided to do Twelfth Night this year. And this is sort of what it looks like here in this book. So they give you a summary of the main characters, which is really helpful. When you're doing Shakespeare, you can get really lost in the characters sometimes. And so they do give you a summary on the first page of the story. And then it's basically a story like this. It tells the Shakespeare story. We usually take about 2 morning basket times to get through the whole story. And then I did the same thing as I did last year. I purchased these No Fear Shakespeare, and I got one for each child and myself, so I purchased 5. And basically, this is how it's set up. So they will have, in the beginning, a summary of the characters, which we did not read because I felt like, in general, we did glance through them. There were a few characters that the Usborne book didn't mention because they were minor characters. Those are the 2 pages of characters. So they give you a summary of the characters and who they are. And then they have the original Shakespearean on one side, and they have kind of the translation, modern translation, on the other side. So the other thing that I get is this. It is the Archangel dramatization of Shakespeare. So I like to get this. I got this used from thrift books. The CDs were in great condition. The case is a little beat up, but it was in great condition. We had no issues listening to this. So this is a dramatization of the reading of this. So then we would listen to these as we look at this with our own eyes, and the kids can choose which side they're going to be looking at, if they're going to be going along with the Shakespearean English or if they want to read the translation. I paused very occasionally just to make some notes, but after we had read it in here, in general, we were able to understand what was happening. So the next 2 days, I'm probably going to split it up into 2 days to get this finished, but we are going to watch this one here, Twelfth Night. I have not watched this, so I'm not going to say show this to your kids without watching it first or doing your own research. I have done research on this particular one. I don't see anything that's going to be too weird for my kids. The Midsummer Night's Dream was a little harder to find one that was a little more PG. Let's just say I had to fast forward a few parts on the one that I picked for Midsummer Night's Dream. But I chose this because it is not a play, and it's more of a movie style, and I think it will just keep my kids' attention better, as well as it doesn't seem to have a little more than just some of the fighting and stuff like that, which is not going to be violent, but yeah. So I did read all the cautions on there, and I would recommend that you do too before you show it to your kids. But my kids are 10, almost 11, up to 14, so it should be fine for us. So we'll probably do half of it tomorrow and then half the next day, and that's sort of almost the end of our school. Yeah, that will be our last day of school on Wednesday. So that covers what was in my morning basket for third term and how we enjoyed it. I did go through some of those rather quickly because some of them I've talked about in term 2 and I didn't want to spend too much time on them. But if you're curious, you want more details about some of the things that I mentioned, you can go and look at my term 2 video and I might give a more thorough analysis of it at that time. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for watching my last reflections video. Do check out my other reflections videos if you haven't already. I talked about how our overall school year went this year. I talked about our group work. I talked about my 4th and 5th grade boys school independent work and my 6th and 7th graders independent work. And now this is my final video. I will have a playlist with all of these. I will link it below if you want to watch them all in a row. Thank you so much for coming today. And I hope you're having a good summer, and I'll see you next video. Bye, everybody.